Again, I am Teresa Shecker, and as we were talking about grants this week, I knew that I wanted to look into anything that would help with the preservation of the Old Courthouse Museum in Vicksburg, Mississippi. And this museum houses the original courthouse in Warren County, Mississippi. And this stood during the Civil War, during the Siege of Vicksburg. And when the city was overtaken, and when the Confederates had to surrender, this is where Ulysses S. Grant replaced the Confederate flag with the United States flag, because this was the highest spot in Vicksburg, and this is also where the most prominent spot would have been. Now, when you're in Vicksburg, you can kind of see the courthouse from certain places, but back then this would have been the most prominent spot in town. This would have been visible from basically everywhere in Vicksburg. So this is a beautiful old historic site. It's one that's definitely in need of restoration and preservation. It is listed on the National Register of Historic Places. It was registered May 23rd of 1968. I actually found an actual grant. It doesn't close until March 10th. And so I contacted the curator of the Old Courthouse Museum. I emailed him the grant opportunity. So the grant is called Historic Preservation Fund Save America's Treasures Preservation Grants Department of the Interior National Park Services. And they actually do qualify for this grant because they are a 501c3 organization. The site has stood since, it's believed since 1861, with construction beginning in 1859. I hoped this grant would help them rebuild the retaining wall around the museum. It's up on a hill, and so there's this retaining wall that goes all the way around it. And because it's been through so much, it's been through obviously the Civil War and bombing, but it's also been through tornadoes, it's been through flooding. Where it sits, the Mississippi River is not very far off of it. So when the Mississippi River would flood, this retaining wall would get hit. There's also been direct hits to it from tornadoes. In Mississippi, we're accustomed to get hit by tornadoes. It just happens. And so the courthouse has actually been hit by tornadoes a couple times. Again, the Mississippi River flooding has actually hit it. And so the retaining wall itself is coming apart. If you park on the back side of the courthouse, where the retaining wall is, it's being held up by like 2x4s and literal wood. It's really bad. It's starting to fall apart. So the retaining wall is in need of like immediate repair. Also, the historic nature of the courthouse requires unique preservation. So things that are on the historic registry, there's very specific rules about how you can repair them. There's just unique preservation rules. The grant would allow the old courthouse to make much needed repairs and continue their work both in preservation of history and also in research of history. The grant has a floor of $125,000 and a ceiling of $500,000. It's very strict in its guidelines. The grant requires a project narrative, a budget justification, project images that show detail of the work to be done, as well as a letter of the owner. The goal and task of the project must be laid out in detail and be in line with the budget justification. Any lobbying registrants must be listed, and there are forms for them to fill out as well. The history of the courthouse is well documented, and the Courthouse Museum would most likely also qualify for a grant, not only because of the nature of the building and its prominence, but because of the collection of documents and important memorabilia that is housed there. The grant is offered in this way. It says, Save America's Treasures grants from the Historic Preservation Fund provide preservation and or conservation assistance to nationally significant historic properties and collections. So if you ever get to go to the Courthouse Museum, it is beautiful. It's gorgeous. They have been invaluable in my dissertation research. They offer assisted research for free, but they are also a museum. So the website for the Old Courthouse Museum describes their memorabilia this way. They say they have Confederate flags, including one that was never surrendered, the tie worn by Jefferson Davis at his inauguration as the Confederate president, fine portraits, china and silver, exquisite antique furniture, the trophy antlers won by the steamboat Robert E. Lee, antebellum clothing, toys, Indian and pioneer implements, an original teddy bear given to a local child by Teddy Roosevelt, just a few of the thousands of artifacts which are housed in the old Warren County Courthouse Museum. The Warren County Courthouse built in 1858, stands today as Vicksburg's most historic structure and has housed such guests and speakers as Jefferson Davis, Ulysses S. Grant, Booker T. Washington, Teddy Roosevelt, and William McKinley. Their documentation, some dates back to the 1850s. Again, it's been ridiculously invaluable to my dissertation research. They do offer assisted research free of charge, and I do hope that they'll qualify for this grant. It's a beautiful courthouse. It's full of so much history and to really dedicated historians. So thank you.